I am Adam Rosen. I am a library associate at the Parkview branch of the St. Louis County Library. I am also a community activist, an autism advocate, and I'm also a composer and a published writer. I wanted to share with you my background. I struggled so much in school that when I went to my first college, I had what's called an autism shutdown, where I could not leave my dorm room because I was so overstimulated and overwhelmed with having to function and practice functioning, independently. Most of those skills that neurotypical people, eventually, gather and are able to practice in school and then go to college and hopefully take those skills in college and turn that into a flourishing life, a well-lived life on your own independently. And for people on the autism spectrum, that process typically gets interrupted if you don't have social and educational supports. Unfortunately, my family and I together, we we learned the hard way that when you do not have the awareness and the resources and the support, you flounder and you are much more likely to fall through the cracks. Having said all of that, I wanted to do something with my difference. At the time, I called it a difference because I just did not know exactly what my neurodivergence, my differences in how I am wired, how, what it actually meant in the real world in real time, what it meant to stumble through life. Having talents that took me to local success on the stage, and not yet knowing what my life plan was going to look like. It was a very scary place. I went to a second college here in St. Louis. My first college was in Wisconsin, and at my second college here in St. Louis, after a year and a half living in the dorm room, I had the same identical shutdown. And after that point in time, my folks took me home, and we, basically decided, okay, obviously something needs to change and we need to support you in whatever way we can, because what you were doing, unfortunately, was not working. And so by the time I went to my second college and then had my shutdown and came back home, I applied to several different jobs. I was an administrative assistant for a period of time. And shortly after that, in the summer of 2002, I was blessed with getting a job with the county library as a library assistant. And I, grew into my role, and it has turned into a kind of a career, I think. And so that career and getting to practice meeting people where they are and serving them in an official function as a library assistant, and being able to basically develop so many skills that you learn in college. I have been able to self-actualize, which is a process that does not look quite the same for people who are not on the autism spectrum. And so I eventually wanted to do something with my art and my writing. And so my father and I put together the germ, the seed of an idea for, Adam, what would it be like? My dad turned to me one day when we were taking my sister back to her college, and we were driving on the way back from, picking her, dropping her off at school. And on the way back, my father literally said to me, well, Adam, okay, you want to write a musical. You really want to do that. But what do you want to actually do with your life? How are you going to get there? I mean, he literally said that to me. Oh, by the way, he's a clinical psychologist. And so we got this crazy idea where all the best ideas are born when we were just driving back to St. Louis. And we came up with an idea for young adults just like me that were basically stuck and wanting to go to a support group. So my dad said, why don't you do something about that? Well, that idea turned into a one-act musical called Asperger's, a high-functioning musical. And we took that idea, and within 2 years, we were able to premiere it at the 2013 St. Lou Fringe Festival. And everyone, let me tell you, we oversold the show. It was the highest grossing show at that year's Fringe Festival. And I will be happy to answer more questions about the musical later in our presentation because I don't want to take away too much time for that. But I just wanted to share my background that I was able to turn my idea into reality about growing up on the autism spectrum and feeling so, isolated and not feeling a part of the world but wanting to do something about it. And so I was able to take that process, self-actualizing of wanting to, not accept the world as it is, but wanting to find a way to not have to stumble through life, but how to create the opportunities that I knew that I deserve, the opportunities that everyone on the autism spectrum deserves. And so in the process of creating my musical, my dad said, well, you don't need an autism diagnosis to, validate who you are. And I was talking to him about this, and I said, Dad, if I don't have a diagnosis, who's going to believe me? Who is going to trust me when I start to write articles and publish a book someday about being on the autism spectrum if I never had a diagnosis? And so eventually, at the age of 37, I was very lucky to obtain an adult autism diagnosis, which is getting harder to do nowadays, I must say. In 2016, through a connection, I was able to get an actual autism level 1 diagnosis. And at the time, autism level 1 was known as Asperger's syndrome. And so once I had my diagnosis in 2016, a year later, I decided to do something about wanting to create an opportunity at the county library. And so it was not very difficult in that time period, to parlay my goals and my ideas and my vision of what could be into what already exists out there. I'm living proof that it can be done. It's not easy, but I took my passion and my vision and my ideas and especially of wanting to pave the way for everyone who came after me so that people would not have to struggle or suffer to the degree that I did. And eventually I got the idea of wanting to go to my managers. And I thought, well, you know what? They talk about library programming and community outreach every day in the library system. And I thought, that's what I could do. So what I did one day, it was near the end of 2017, it was in the fall of 2017. I took my idea, I wrote it down, and I proposed an outreach program for young adults on the autism spectrum. And, that was a very audacious thing to do because as some of you, know, there are statistics, out there on the web that state, that the vast majority of young adults on the autism spectrum are either unemployed or severely underemployed. And, I was aware that what I was doing was coming out of what's called the autism closet. And I knew that my life, would never be the same. And thank goodness it would never be the same, because I was literally able to put my vision into reality. Not everyone is in a position, at work to be able to advocate for themselves in such a, in such a blunt way. But I trusted that my managers would understand the importance of having an autism expo for young adults, because children, get all of the attention from the media, from institutions, from parents. And so they get help in many cases, not in all cases, of course, but in many cases, when you are really young and you're really struggling, it is easier to get resources and support. But if you're a young adult, you grow up with a sense of not merely fitting into the world, but of being terrified of moving forward in your life, because you don't know, how are you going to get a job? How are you going to keep a job? How are you going to develop as a person? So I knew that what I was doing was vital for my own healing and for my own professional development. And that is how I got the chutzpah, the gumption, the bravery to create an idea which grew into the first St. Louis Community Library Autism Expo.